Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Cambridge Physics for New South Wales Stage 6 Year 11. My name is Caroline Poole and I'm the New South Wales State Sales Manager based here in Sydney. Before we get started, in the spirit of reconciliation, Cambridge University Press and Assessment acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. We have a great session in store for you today with our lead physics author, Dr. Simon Crook, presenting on a range of different things for the new upcoming physics syllabus and how Cambridge supports the teaching of this course. Simon is an experienced science educator and honorary associate at the School of Physics, the University of Sydney. In 2015, Simon founded Crooked Science, a science education consultancy, working with schools for all sectors K-12 around professional development of teachers and working in situ and online with students. As well as being an experienced HSC physics marker, Simon was also the series consultant for the Cambridge New South Wales Science second edition, stage 4 and 5. So following Simon's presentation today, there will be a short video demonstration of the Cambridge Physics Interactive platform presented by lead science publisher Sarah Fabris. There will also be an opportunity throughout the webinar to submit questions that Simon and Sarah will address. But if we do run out of time, we will get back to you at a later time. So with that, I will hand over to Simon to get started. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Great to be with everyone this afternoon. So just as I'm getting into this, as Caroline said, been running a lot of PL around former syllabuses, current syllabus, and have a lot of courses lined up for the new syllabus. So do check out the Crooked Science website there. So it's been a privilege to be lead author for the new syllabus textbooks for Cambridge for physics. Working with a great team. So just getting into what we're going to cover. It's short and sweet this afternoon. So we're going to give an overview of the changes in the new syllabus and how Cambridge are addressing all of these changes and providing the timely resources and textbooks for teachers and students and schools. So just very quickly, we have moved to 7 focus areas instead of 8 modules, which is great. We've cut down year 11 from those 4 modules to 3 focus areas. So even though many of us love the thermodynamics, we've lost it, and a lot of people, just for survival, were kind of almost passing that off to students to teach themselves with their limited time in year 11. So teacher voice has certainly been listened to there. Year 12 has a very similar structure. The final focus areas is now under a different name, but very, very similar contents to the current module 8. Just in terms of with the changes and the new timing. So I'll be honest, this makes me smile, but seeing we've got the new 3 focus areas for year 11, which is great, as I said, but it must be legislated somewhere because there's got to be 120 indicative hours. The kinematics and dynamics, which has been merged together to form fundamentals mechanics, which is how many people teach the current syllabus in that regard. That's been bolstered to 50 hours, which looks a little bit mega, particularly when considering matter, energy, and the cosmos only has 30 indicative hours. So this might be perhaps a bit more of a paper exercise than what the reality will be in schools. With that, we have 10 hours of depth study in each year, so rather than 15, with less kind of prerequisites that we had before, or less rules than when depth studies were first given to us with what is the current outgoing syllabus. And as we're saying here, Cambridge is providing programs to actually help with the planning and your scope and sequencing, which are available now. So I know a lot of people like to teach in sequence. It's probably easier. Certainly with other syllabuses and even with this syllabus, the syllabus is designed in sequence, but as professionals, it's your prerogative if you wanted to teach out of sequence. So yeah, do tap into those kind of like programs to help with your planning there. And with year 12, yeah, as we said, we've got the four focus areas and the in theory 30 hours each. But I'd mention, yeah, the increased contents. We're currently planning the writing of the year 12 textbook. The year 11 one's coming out very soon. We've got details on that shortly. I think October, from the most recent emails I've received. And I'm sure the experts here will be elaborating on that later. But yeah, we are very much focusing in on the year 12 as we speak. Just with following on from the curriculum reform, the curriculum review that led to the curriculum reform and all of the new syllabuses. One aspect in all the syllabuses is the content is more explicit, and that is certainly the case with physics. We'll be talking a little bit about the indigenous aspects as well, and I've highlighted that there. So this is where a lot of the new content is, where people might be feeling a little bit twitchy, where they might be physics experts but not used to actually teaching Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's knowledge around aspects of physics and applications there. Just in terms of these little captions in the top right, this is perhaps the most important one for those of you who are really here to find out about Cambridge and why to perhaps choose Cambridge over other publications. We've written this from scratch. This has not been a case of copy and paste or relabeling of Victorian or UK texts and all the rest of it. We have started from scratch, which has made it a labour of love, but I think it's all the better for it and is a lot more explicit and a lot more concise. So just wanted to highlight some of the notable new contents. Now, Working Scientifically was the chapter that I was responsible for the Year 11 text. Got some additional responsibilities for the Year 12 one coming as well as overseeing and as I guess the lead author, all the other chapters. There is some commonality. There's some sharing between the physics text and the biology text, for where there's common things, say around reliability, validity, accuracy, and things there. But just wanted to highlight some of the key things for Working Scientifically. So, as a general statement around the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's contribution to the development of scientific knowledge, that is in there within Working Scientifically. So that is new. Okay, we've got a bit more of the kind of statistics in here, and formally a lot of the things that we would do normally anyway, but we've got them in here in terms of assessing error, uncertainty and limitations. But then the other aspects, specifically, they are now named, which I think is a big theme here with the syllabus, with the new syllabus, and I'm sure other syllabuses besides. Good practice that experienced teachers have always done is now named more explicitly in the syllabuses, which is great. Those of you who've perhaps seen me present on things before, we've got validity, reliability, and accuracy. It's very nice to see precision, which has been missing for decades now. So we're looking to fill in the gaps where there might be a paucity of resources, where things haven't been there before. Significant figures are in there, which is an appropriate use of significant figures. I would interpret what information has come out of NESAs. We should be expecting at least one question in the exam that is going to be specific about significant figures. Okay, so maybe more than one, but I think that's the way that's going to go, and obviously around the powers. Okay, and moving on, in terms of focus area 1 with fundamentals and mechanics, a little bit back to the future in a very good way. So in terms of two methods for determining acceleration due to gravity, and specifically using graphical methods, we'll be getting the pendulum experiment back, which is outstanding because that was always my go-to, and I know for many teachers the go-to for just teaching the skills, including graphical skills. And it's not specified, but I think you absolutely have to do the pendulum experiments and one other. Okay, and then we got the more explicit and more rigorous sense of deriving the acceleration down an inclined plane, and how Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples used inclined planes. So we've got a very authentic context there for, say, dragging canoes out along slope banks and the like. Most importantly, as a theme, and Nessa have advice here, is make contact with your local language group where possible, so that it is authentic for your students within that area. I do know publishers are putting a lot of work to fill in what is a very, very big gap in terms of resources there. In terms of waves, also, again, some Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's use of not consciously, I'm going to suggest. They're not going out and doing their algebra there, but just in terms of actually for water people, in terms of how they would be fishing, how they would be spearing, based on their observations, how they would make adjustments to have a successful catch. And in terms of an application, and I remember proofing this and we're going through and making some adaptations to the resources, but in terms of students now have to conduct a scientific investigation around spectacles to assist with vision. My recommendation here is to try and keep things two-dimensional rather than three-dimensional. Obviously, you can go there three-dimensional if you so wish. But, with the ray boxes and with the convex and concave lenses, and perhaps with kind of printouts of the shape of the eye and the retina, I think that'd be highly achievable by everyone. So with that, these are textbooks that are coming out, but we have got advice on a lot of experiments. Obviously, there's the explicit experiments that are specified within the syllabus, and then there's other ones besides, as well as all the other resources that Sarah will be showing you later. Okay, and then electricity and magnetism are very similar to how it currently is, but we've now got an explicit experiments to be performed in terms of the strength of an electromagnet, rather than perhaps, as we have currently, we've got the equations and we've got the variables, but there is a prac to actually do here. In terms of assessments, same as previously, so 60-40 percentage weighting, and these aspects are mandatory. Okay, so these are mandatory, that is quite important. But with the recent loosening of the rules in the ACE manual and all the rest of it, these aspects are suggested. This is a sample assessment program as opposed to mandatory. So different to a few years ago there. And so we can see, they're recommending having a depth study. Now we have to do 10 hours depth study hours, but they don't necessarily have to be assessed. And they're suggesting a formal written exam, which I think most people are doing because it's possibly, that's what we have to do at the end with the HSC and preparing the students there. And they're suggesting distributions of weightings, but it's a school's prerogative to do things differently if we want, providing we are addressing the components and overall weightings here. So I think the main thing there is how are we going to address the skills for working scientifically to 60%. Oops, excuse me. I've just changed something. No, everything's all back. Sorry about that. And we have practice exams within the textbooks and particularly within the online resources that relate very nicely in here. So I've kind of really just covered that there with the depth studies, but in terms of, it must include at least one working scientific content of question and predicting and one other one from at least one other focus area. It's not even as strict as it is currently, and they can be done individually or collaboratively. So again, this is great. This is more latitude so that teachers can do what they know is best with their students. So just before I hand over, in terms of how things are looking in terms of the explicit syllabus coverage, each chapter and subsection, we start with, the kind of collation of the relevant syllabus content. We relate directly to the syllabus, and we might have, we might split up, as you can see here, for light and sounds, we might split up into different sections, but even for focus areas, we split them up into multiple chapters. So you're not getting a textbook with 3 chapters. There are many chapters. So it's been very nicely organised and very well laid out, just in terms of between text and diagrams and other stimuli. Very much with a skills focused approach, not least as we saw, we have to do 60% skills. So everything from the actual conducting with the recommended experiments through to, say, graphical skills, interpretation, models, evaluating models, and even down to, advice on referencing styles and the like there, and links, to the worksheets and all of the other resources. There is targeted exam supports. So we have questions that aren't just the questions and the answer. They are unpacked in terms of what is the question asking, structure, marking criteria, and sample responses. So we've really tried to get these as we're going down the year 11 journey, perhaps a little bit looser potentially with the marks, but then as we progress through the year 11 into the year 12 books, getting very, very much honed to the, New South Wales approach to the HSC and the kind of like the awarding and distribution of marks. And certainly in terms of tackling the verbs, we are dealing with that straight away from year 11. And at the end of each chapter, we have our chapter reviews, and there are lots of questions. Please believe me here. There are lots. Proofing this has been a labour of love. But that's because of the sheer quantity and quality and I'd say novelty with the just writing from scratch of the resources. And obviously, a lot of these can be accessed online as well as in the paper form. So we've now got the digital demo, and anything that I've said incorrectly about perhaps the digital things will be fixed up now.
Thanks, Simon, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name's Sarah, and I'm just going to take you through a quick demo of the Physics Online Teaching Suite. So this is the dashboard view of a teacher account. If I go over to the top left here, this is where we can open the content, and you can also toggle between different subjects as well if you're using Cambridge for more than one subject. So if I jump into chapter 6, this is our sample chapter. In the introduction, you'll see everything that's in the print book, the syllabus points, the glossary terms. This prior knowledge quiz is also included for students to access content from stage 4 and 5. When they answer these questions, they will be shown what they got wrong, what they got right, and where they can actually revise that content. So these links here will actually navigate through for the student to stage 4 and 5 content from our Cambridge Science resources. Your students don't need to have a subscription to those resources to be able to access this as well. It's just included in their year 11 resource. So if I navigate through here, I can go through the different parts of the book. We've got the concept map, and then we go into the content. So this is in section 6A at the start of chapter 6. You can see it's all of the content that appears in the chapter in the print book. The videos are all embedded.
What is sound?
And there are captions as well that can be toggled on and off, and it can be made full screen. So as we go through, there's also rollover glossary definitions, and the rest of the content is largely in the same format that you'll find in the book as well. So the practicals are included, all the activities, everything like that. Eventually, all the pracs and activities will also have these teacher notes in them in the full resource. So the teacher notes are a pop-up that will include any kind of advice for the given activity. In this case, there's some suggested links. A lot of the time, these will also have suggested responses, marking criteria, and particularly for practicals, there'll be lab tech notes in some cases, or different ways of conducting the experiment, sometimes some sample data, just depending on the context and what makes the most sense. So if we flick to the bottom of this section, so as Simon mentioned, there's an exam practice box at the end of every section in the print book. These obviously also appear here in the same format. And to access the videos that go with these, it will just be in the header of this box here. In the final resource, you will have a little video icon here. And if you click it, it will just come up as a pop-up that the students can watch, which works the same way as the rest of our videos. There'll be captions and everything included. So you can also access a couple of shortcuts here and anything you can download for this section. So important thing about our resources is that all of the practicals and activities can also be downloaded as a worksheet style file. The teachers have access to PDFs of all of these, but also Word documents so that you can edit things and modify things as you need with all of the answers included. So the students in their view of the interactive textbook, they'll see all of this content and they'll still have this shortcuts pane, but they'll only be able to access the PDF version without answers of each of these documents. These are also available in the resources tab. So if I jump across to the quiz for this section, all of the quiz questions are auto marked. So these will all come up in your reporting in a teacher account. You can also, the answers and everything can be toggled, but only because we're in a teacher view right now. If I go to the review tab, this is where the section review questions for each of the resources are. So this appears as a workspace. There's a lot of different ways that they can answer it. So they can type with mathematical formatting enabled. So it means that they can access all of the symbols if they want to easily type in. They can do stacked fractions, all sorts of things like that. They can also type with normal text, or as you can already see here, they can draw or upload a file as well. This check answer button is toggled by the teacher, so you can decide whether or not students can self-assess their work, or if you want to turn that off and assess their work yourself directly. So this is for all the questions that appear in the print book. And if I go to the resources tab, like I mentioned before, this is where you can access everything a second time. And those review questions with the workspace we just looked at are these ones here, so they can be downloaded as well. Now, in the teacher resources on the left here, this is where you can access all of those files again, all for the entire resource. At the moment, you can only see the chapter 6 resources because we're in a sample product, but in the full resource, they'll all appear here. So there are chapter summaries for all in PowerPoint form for all of the chapters. All of the chapter tests and worksheets and practicals can all be downloaded in a Word editable format. For example, this is showing a zipped file where the answers are included. So there's lots of different ways you can download it. The digital workbook that's included with student accounts will also appear in this section just above the worksheets. So that digital workbook will include all of these worksheets and all the practicals from the print resource in a worksheet style. So it's just ready to go. It can be printed if need be, anything like that. The assessments tab here, this is where you'll go to create custom practice exams like Simon mentioned. So this isn't set up to show you today and we don't quite have time for it, but if you do want to see how that works, definitely reach out to our reps and they can show you in a little bit more detail. There is also a task manager where you can create custom sequences of tasks and these will all appear here. This is including things like differentiating your students based on whether or not they got a certain percentage in something like an auto-marked quiz or other activity. There's lots and lots of different ways that you can do all of that. So if I navigate back to the dashboard, you can see all of that here. So there is also classes where you can manage. There's a tab here to access your classes as well. The assessments, like I mentioned, will appear here. So if you create custom exams, they'll be here and you do have a shortcut to create them as well. And any tasks you create will also be on the dashboard. And in the bottom right here, there is a access support button. So if you are having any trouble using any of the resources, you can access that at any time or reach out to the team as well. And I think that's about all we've got time for now. So I'll leave it there and I think we'll jump into questions. All right, well, we might jump straight into questions then. So just to start off with, so there was an opportunity to ask some questions when you registered. So we've got one there that I'll go through first. While we're answering these, you should be able to see the question function on your screen where you can type in an answer and send to us now. So please do that if you do have any questions you want us to go through in this session. If we do run out of time, then we will definitely get in touch with you after the session as well. So I've got a question here that I believe has come from John. So this might be a question for you, Simon. John's just asking, for inexperienced teachers, how would you specifically use a CRO to demonstrate waves or have it as an investigation?
Okay, thanks for that, Sarah. So honestly, for an inexperienced teacher, unless you've got lots of time to prepare and a mentor on site, I would probably steer clear. Because with a CRO, with a cathode ray oscilloscope, if one button is just in the wrong position, you can just get nothing like coming out, and it's very, very frustrating. And some of them are, like if you've got the really old ones, they can be really temperamental. There are so many great oscilloscope apps out there, so you can get them for phones, iPads, desktops, laptops. So virtual oscilloscope springs to mind. In terms of if you can get your oscilloscope working or you're using a virtual one, I would definitely use a tone generator. So possibly a virtual tone generator as well, of which there are plenty, and apps as well. Or you might have a signal generator, so an old school one where you're turning the dial, and then I'd be analyzing them. Really importantly, and we do stress this in the textbook actually, I remember doing this bit as well, is the trace on an oscilloscope is a graph. So let's not forget sounds are longitudinal waves, but the trace on an oscilloscope will be a sine wave. That's because it's time on the x-axis and then displacement, not in any particular direction, on the y-axis. Or, voltage as it is, in fact, in terms of as a proxy for the amplitude there. So I hope that answers your question there, John. But there are some really good investigations that you can do, and learning like how to use the time base to actually determine what the frequency, what the time period is, first of all, then the frequency, and then the corresponding, say, voltage based on how many centimeters it is up the scale.
Great, thanks, Simon. And I think we've got a follow-up from the same person that's just popped through, so maybe we'll jump to that next. So the response to that's just mentioning always having a hard time solving momentum when it is not in a Pythagorean triangle. This is really testing my reading of physics ability, or needing a sine rule calculation. Will there be explicitly worked examples in the teacher version of the text?
Yeah, there are explicit versions. You shouldn't have to use the sine rule. If you got any specific little things like that, yeah, probably best to contact me directly. Should be able to resolve one way or another Pythagorean, but I'm kind of talking more generically here. Probably need to see some specifics.
Yeah, not a problem. And look, if you are wanting to get in touch with Simon about any of this stuff for more PD on the syllabus directly or on investigations, if you don't have Simon's contact details, do reach out to our reps and they can pass that on for these kinds of things as well. So we can definitely go into more detail.
Or get me through my website.
Yes. All right, perfect. So we had another question come through from Arthi, just with regards to errors and uncertainty. Is that covering error bars, etc.?
Okay, so we do deal with errors and uncertainty in the textbooks. So with errors, we're really looking more qualitatively in terms of the difference between random errors and systematic errors. And please don't ever say human error. Make sure your students don't. Although obviously, if we can often determine the systematic error to an actual quantity. For example, if you got a top pan balance that hasn't been tared, or some kind of fixed offset, and also learning how to identify them. So perhaps in various optics experiments where everything seems to be out by a certain angle. Or sorry, just another example, because I know we focus in on this one as well. Inverse square law with light intensity. If you've got any ambient light in the background, that's going to be a systematic error. Error bars, I would say, are not required. They're not specified in the syllabus. And of course, error bars aren't for error, they're for uncertainty. But we do go there with uncertainty. So if as a teacher you want to extend your students, or just to show them graphically, shall we say, how uncertainty could be displayed, and it's a click of a button in Excel or Google Sheets, then you can go there, but I would say it's not expected.
Perfect. Thanks, Simon. Okay, we've got just another question just regarding working scientifically content, asking whether the content is in a separate chapter or the skills are embedded in specific prac activities. So I guess the short answer is it's both.
Yeah, I was
Did you
about
want
to say
to?
that.
Yeah, did you want to elaborate at all on that, Simon?
Yeah, so chapter 1 is working scientifically. So that's a whole chapter 2 itself. We make a few links to the future chapters, but it's definitely a springboard to the all the other chapters. But then all the other chapters most definitely refer back to working scientifically. So yeah, the answer is definitely both.
Yeah, and I guess the way that chapter is structured too, it can be kind of used almost like an appendix for reference that you can then direct the students to kind of refer back to throughout the year. There's things that Simon and the team have included, like having tables full of different variables and the different exponents and things like that, so that they do have a reference table for checking. And I know certainly units is something that can get quite complex for students that are new to it. So yeah, definitely keep referring back to that.
Thanks, Aaron. If we can just jump in there. We've really, because we're experienced writers who've written this textbook, we've really tried to bring in the tricks of the trade. So it's not just the working scientifically, it's the methodology for teachers and for students. So, for example, with the pendulum experiments, don't do every 10 centimeters starting at 10 centimeters because it's just too fast and you're just building in too much random error there. So you'd start at 30 centimeters as an example. Same with inverse square law. Don't start too close to the light source. Otherwise, when you start plotting things on graphs, they're going to be too close together, even if you do 1 over d squared. So yeah, we just got a few of those little tricks of the trade in there as well.
Great, thanks, Simon. So thanks, Crystal, for that question on the working scientifically content. All right, I think we've got time for just 1 or 2 more questions. I'll just go through one quickly and then we'll move on to close. One person's just asked about whether there's offline versions of the textbook available. So yes, that is available in the teacher resource. I think in the demo we just played that I've taken you through, it doesn't show it just because it's in a demo account, but there is an option to download that as well. So with that, I might finish there. If we didn't get to your questions, we'll definitely reach out and answer them directly. And with that, I'll hand over to Caroline.
Fantastic. Thank you to Simon and Sarah for those presentations today. That was great. So just before we finish, I thought I'd just share a little bit more information about the resources that we offer. So first of all, there's a few different purchasing options. So you obviously have a print book that you can access for the students. In that print book, there is a code where students can activate that code and have access to that interactive textbook that Sarah demonstrated. You do have the option of an interactive textbook on its own. And like Sarah just said, you can download the PDF. So this is just a digital version without the print book. So the online teaching suite is a complementary resource. And this is where we set you up as a faculty. So if you've adopted the student resources into the school, we will set all that up for you. We'll even set up the classes and come out and do a bit more of an in-depth PD on how that all works. So we're happy to do that. So the next slide will just show you is what we can bring to you now. So essentially, it'd be great to come out to the school. You do have a rep in your area that is happy to book a time, come out with the planning documents. We have some sample pages, some of those worksheets and pracs and things like that. We can definitely share those with you as well. And then you can also explore the platform a little bit like Sarah presented on, just with a sample chapter there. So we'd be happy to guide you to that as well. So the books, all the resources, will be available in term 3. So we'd love to come and see you before then and give you all these samples. So the last slide, you will see the sales team. So if you'd like to reach out, by all means do, but we will definitely follow up with you after today and get back to you with everything we can as it becomes available. So I hope you have enjoyed today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining, and you will hear from us soon, and have a lovely night. Thank you.